Okay, we're back live again, Senate Transportation Committee. We're going to continue our discussion this morning. Dan DeLaviere is with us for the Rail and Aviation Division, the AOT. And good morning, Dan. And you got a big subject this morning, so there's a lot going on in both. So go right ahead.
All right, good morning. For the record, my name is Dan DeLaviere. I am the Rail and Aviation Bureau Director for VTrans. Today I was going to run you through the Rail FY24 Rail and Aviation budget, which is in your book. We'll start with Rail.
Let's see which one it was.
No, the white book.
Yeah.
And we'll start on tab 11, which is in Rail. And I'll quickly run through what we call budget on a page, which is essentially the first, what looks like a spreadsheet. This page here, we'll run through each project and give you an overview of what we're doing in Rail.
Is that Amtrak to Montreal?
That's the very first one, Amtrak to Montreal. 3 years.
It's for a study.
Study? Yeah. Right up, I'll be 100 years old when we're going to get that.
Never mind.
Don't go there.
Oh, you're in the back.
Is there somebody from Quebec we could invite down here to talk about this and wine and dine them a bit?
So there's a lot of moving parts. It's not just one person. All right, so I'll go into a little bit. So what this is in the budget is this is a placeholder on what we anticipate our next step is. Okay, so there's the high-level scoping effort that's going on now that the province of Quebec is paying for. And then the next step, once they get the high level of like, we need one of these and one of these and one of these and one of these, which we did years ago for this sort of a high-level station one. Now they're putting all the pieces together, and then this part would be what Vermont's piece is to really start putting together a set of architectural plans for the station and talking with.
Why would we? What's the station in Montreal? So
In
this is
Montreal.
like our share of it, or
Right. So we need to develop architectural plan. Okay. So think about.
we Vermont, or we everybody involved?
So everybody involved, and those parties are the province of Quebec, state of New York, because they'll share this same station and track, because they use it for their Adirondack service, and our portion, and then of course Amtrak. So there's the four major parties. There's Quebec, New York, Vermont, Amtrak. So we're all at the table. But when you start breaking it down on the Quebec side, there's the province, there's the city, there's Via Rail, which is their rail service. There's the owner of the actual railroad.
Union.
It's very
The
unanimous.
station is privately owned.
Station is owned by multiple people because we're at track level, and then there's 3 levels before you get to ground level. So there's 3 different landlords that we have to deal with, getting from off the track up into the ground. That's what this money is for, is to actually figure out, study. We call it a study, but it's more about getting to the next preliminary plan set, getting to figuring out, pulling together more information so that we can get to a plan set. There's a lot here.
It doesn't happen if you don't do this.
It doesn't happen if we don't do this. And this is Vermont. This is
Vermont share.
This is us anticipating that the next hurdle for us to get over is this. Now, nobody said that this is going to happen in 2024 exactly, but we know looking ahead, we're forecasting that it's about this time frame. Okay, so this is a placeholder. We don't know the exact dollar. It could be, we put in 250,000, but I actually think it's more less than that.
And New York would have to be putting in some as well.
Yeah, so the last time we did the first scoping, on the first scoping, Vermont put in 50,000, New York put in 100,000. Amtrak put in, I can't remember, not as much, but Amtrak was part of it also. So,
Is the Adirondack Amtrak as well?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, New York State pays for that.
You just raised something. Is Amtrak in Canada, in any other capacity, in any
Sure.
other place? Okay.
Yeah, on the West Coast, they are, and I think they go into Canada in 4 different locations.
Alaska. Yeah.
Alaska, I don't think they go to Alaska. So anyway, so this is V-Trans anticipating the next step. That's what this first line item is, and it's not an exact.
Is there, amongst those 4 partners, is there an agreed upon split of costs, or is just like each time there's a cost, people negotiate how much? each
Yeah.
person's gonna-
Sort of, because it hasn't been sort of the same situation each time, so it's, yeah, we sit down and we negotiate. And this is, like I said, literally, this is a placeholder for us. This is, I'm setting aside some money to be able to pay our next step.
Well, we hope.
Or do we even need there for the discussion?
Well, we're sort of leading it. So Vermont we're sort of spearheading, while we're working with Amtrak in New York and Quebec. We seem to be the ones always asking for the next meeting or pushing it through. So Vermont is probably, I don't know, we're very active in this. So we have, for those of you who know Brian Searles, he is still working with us, doing the political phone calls and all that stuff. So
He's good at it, too.
he is good at it, and he's got a lot of contacts, and he's, he knows his stuff. So we're fortunate that he's still helping us out.
Last question. There doesn't seem to be any technical obstacles here. This is just financial and political in a way.
No, there's technical, there's infrastructure, there's infrastructure obstacles,
North of the border.
north of the border, yeah. So ones that we can't control. So we have done almost everything we need to do on the Vermont side to get our train. I mean, literally, when you ride the train, track is nice and smooth. You hit the Canadian border and all of a sudden the train starts doing this, blah, blah, blah. You can feel the Canadian border. So there's infrastructure on the other side. There's the bridge coming into the city. There's literally if you're coming from the east side, which we would be coming into the city, the railroad bridge, we literally need a slot. It's so busy that we need a slot to get across that bridge. We don't have one right now.
Time slot.
A time slot. We're gonna need one coming in, one coming out. So, I mean, that's one thing that we still have to negotiate. There's
Is there capacity though to add?
it's not, somebody's gonna have to give something up. It's not, yeah,
That makes it even more difficult.
yeah.
So there's freight on that train from
Yes.
the border down, so
There's freight that crosses that bridge.
and it crosses from the Vermont border.
Oh, yes, sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yes, there is freight that crosses the border there now. So anyway, a lot going on, but there's technical stuff, there's political stuff, there's everything that you can.
And capacity stuff.
Capacity stuff, yeah. There's a swing bridge that has to be lined. Right now it stays open, but Customs and Border Protection says we're not gonna leave St. Albans unless that track is lined over the bridge, over the river. So that they don't start out, get into Canada, and all of a sudden that bridge won't move. They wanna know that that bridge is lined. There's things like that that we're working on. I know I'm getting into the weeds, but.
That's possible. Appreciate that.
All right, so that's just a placeholder. I started off on a big one here. I'm gonna run through this fairly quickly because some of these we gotta build, I'll just give you if I say build project, what it is between Rutland and Hoosick, New York. A few years ago, we got a build grant for 29 bridge projects to upgrade them from, upgrade them to 286,000 pounds at 40 miles an hour for freight. So when I say build projects, that's what we're doing. So this next one, Bridge 62, is a build project. We are bidding that actually right now. Berry City on Hill Street, that's a crossing project that we're going to be adding new warning devices for. A little bit about how we fund our projects is we apply for discretionary grants And this next one, which is the Whacker, oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The Whacker subsidy. Whacker subsidy, I think we talk about this every year. You guys know what this is. This is to pay the railroad to operate this line.
Is it going down? I mean, we hope at one point, since they're moving a lot more freight rock out of there, that maybe they'd start making a little money, but
It's funny,
now.
I had this question. I just came from House Trend, so I had this exact same
Yeah.
question. Are we making money yet? And the answer is,
Well, not making money, but are we lowering our costs?
we have not yet.
That was the hope.
Yeah, it is the
The
hope.
hope springs eternal.
So currently, we are still paying the Whacker subsidy. Next crossing is in Burlington, the Intervale Road, a very busy crossing if you're familiar with that down at the Intervale.
What are you doing there?
We are, so that crossing right now, we're going to be adding warning devices there. The town wants to,
Your light, it's a light.
It will
it's got
be.
signals
It
or
will
not? Or does it have signals?
it will be,
Oh.
yeah, we're adding lights and the town wants to put in a new sidewalk. They talk about bike path, but I think it's just a sidewalk.
That isn't South Burlington, is it?
No, it's in Burlington. It's actually,
Bad if it was.
it's Burlington.
South Point, the levy trains.
To do, along the lake.
All right.
Okay, next one's in Cavendish, Bridge 132. This bridge actually currently has chains and come-alongs holding the pier together. So
That doesn't sound very good. That's a billion too.
that's for the, we have to replace a pier that's in the middle of the river. So, yeah.
And that's the total cost, or is this?
You know, I don't know if that extends over
Multi-year?
one or two budget years, but based on that, that's got to be the majority of the cost right there.
You're still. Maybe you don't know.
We have some PE left to do, but we're about ready to go to, this one's about done. We're about ready to go to construction. So. Chester, this is a rehab project, Bridge 125. That won't start for another year from now, about a year from now. It also in Chester, missing link road crossing. We're adding signals to that crossing.
The name of the road is Missing Link, or the name of the
Missing-
project is
Miss-
Missing Link?
Missing link road. That's the name of the road.
Wow.
In Clarendon, Walker Mountain Road, we're actually putting new signals in there, and we're just starting that project. That's a new project for us, just doing PE. So again, I was talking about funding. So this next project, the Coventry Hartford Washington County Railroad line. So how we get our funding is we apply for discretionary grants, and to apply for a discretionary grant, you have to have the federal government wants you to have 30% design. So they want to be able to say you've done some preliminary design, you've done some permitting, you know that this project can be built before they'll give you your grant. So what this money is this basically is to do the 30% design and put together a grant application. And we do on rail, how we do grants is we kind of do corridor projects. So because if you do your corridor, say this particular one, if we're focusing on this one goes White River Junction to Newport. Okay, it's Washington County Railroad. If you had one,
County Railroad goes.
The name is not.
No, but it's not the northern end of the Connecticut, the line that goes up the Connecticut River?
yes, this is, the full name is Washington County Connecticut River Line.
Okay, thank you.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
Well, that's why WCRL.
yes. And again, so your railroad is only as good as your weakest bridge. So when you do grant projects, you do them end to end. So that's what this is. It's getting all the bridges from Newport down the White River to 286,000 pounds. So that the whole corridor can now move freight end to end. And this is just the grant application process in the 30% design.
But if we get the grant, then we would have 286 bridges all the way from the Canadian border to the Mass border.
Let's see, so when you get to White River, then you get on the New England Central, and we are 286 down to, there's one bridge in Mass that they're working on,
That, not in Vermont.
Right, Vermont's good.
On that line, but over in south of Rutland, those, some of those.
So that's at the other side of the state.
Right.
So, yeah,
I know
so
that.
that's the build project that, we're talking, when I say build project.
Right.
That's what we're
That's
doing,
what
Rutland
That's
side.
close to-
Hoosick, yeah, Rutland to Hoosick. I'm
Alright.
jumping around under there. I don't, if I'm confusing you, I'm sorry.
No, we just don't hold to the script, don't you know that?
So I do have a question about the way the book, I should remember this, but, so what's the difference between this front, the rail path, we have this table, and then we have these details. Not everything in the detail is in the tab, and I understand like project that's just zeros,
Yes,
but some of them have money in this fiscal year, but aren't on this front table.
they should be. So anything that's in the detailed, so the back sheets are more detailed and they give you the out years.
Right.
But anything that's in, so how this front sheet is built, it's generated through the detailed sheets that are in the back.
Give an example of what you're
So if you
seeing.
go to projects, if this is announced about a quarter, Burlington only has one on the front table. The one that you talked about at the internet, but if you go to the tabs, there is a whole bunch of Burlington projects.
Because you got Shelburne to Burlington on the second page. So Burlington is sometimes second after, like Shelburne to Burlington.
So on the detail sheets, on page 6, it starts with this King Street project.
Oh.
And then there's the crossing streets of Maple Street. So there's just several that are here that are spending money that don't seem to be here, so that's.
Are they part of that Shelburne, Burlington?
They shouldn't be spending money in FY '24. They may be spending money in '23 or '25
Or 22.
or '22, and that's why they would show up in the detail, but they wouldn't have money. What I'm specifically focusing on is FY '24.
So
That's
maybe
why-
maybe I
that's-
was seeing 22 or 23 expenses in that.
Yeah, I find it confusing to use these sheets because we're talking about different years. What I'm presenting to you today is FY '24 only. That's why I specifically.
So that's the difference. This is only expenses in the fiscal year we're talking about, where everything here is 2 years back and 3 years forward.
Correct.
So like the King Street, in Burlington, 24 is 0.
Right.
This year was 47,000. The big expenditure was in 22.
Yeah, so the intervale is the only one that's up for, it just wasn't.
Yeah. If I went through these sheets, I in years past, I tried to do it, and I think I confused the committees more than anything.
No, it makes sense. What the difference was.
So
And,
I try to focus only on
We
FY
just went ahead.
'24.
well, I remember those detail sheets were there and they're very helpful at times, but,
He's trying to find Gary.
well, that's what I was gonna ask you.
Very clear. The one that one train goes a month through here, that's
Yeah,
that's the one that big
or the
train.
one where no trains go.
I haven't heard
which I don't know if
why
that's.
I've been here, so I don't know.
Not the other day.
Probably in about 20 minutes.
Guys are looking to get the Washington County line named Percival Clock.
They bring one piece of rock at once.
Well, the problem is in the wintertime, trains can't make the hill.
Right.
From Barry up to
It's a steep
Granville,
hill.
it's the incline there and you've got steel on steel. So when it's frozen and ice and slippery, the train can't make the hill. So that's why you don't see a lot of activity, January, February, March, but they'll start running as soon as it gets warm.
They still got the steam engine here. They use this steam, the smoke coming out of the stack. Yeah.
Did you get asked in the house about your favorite trestle bridge in the area?
308?
Yeah,
No,
so I thought, I heard from another AOT employee that there was a study happening,
there is. We got some-
but you don't put that in here.
It's not, it's FEMA mitigation money, so it's in a different, it's not in my,
FEMA. Oh,
FEMA.
No, but what?
that's that bridge that no longer used, that has a pier in the middle of the river that the city is considered as a flood hazard.
Oh, in Barry.
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
Was that what I
Which
was,
is where the governor is from. I'm just looking out for the governor's hometown.
when I was in the Boy Scouts, we took a train to Lachine, Canada, from Burlington or Essex, or what. And there was a steam engine actually. And so we were the first passenger car behind the engine. The windows were open. And we got to Lachine, Canada, we were covered in soot.
Oh,
We got off the train, we were all kids. We were covered. Talk about environmental friendly.
Right.
And all the stuff came in the window, wipers, we didn't notice it or something.
The good news is we don't do that anymore.
The last passenger.
Nobody's shoveling coal anymore.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Portland, Maine.
You did.
She's still shoveling coal on her.
Yeah, she's still
Maybe
bringing
this
coal.
weekend,
It's
but it
big
gets
cold.
really cold, I'll stoke it up.
She had the same ton of coal for the last 4 years.
I'm making progress. Things take time, you know that.
All right, I'll run down, keep going. Down in Danby, we've got a FEMA culvert replacement down there. The other one in Danby is a build project, which is 86. And then another FEMA project in Dorset, that's a culvert replacement. And that's 3 build bridges. So again, I'm gonna keep saying those build projects.
Dorset has a lot.
So again, we're doing corridor, we're doing the whole corridor, right? So we're going right down the line and fixing all the bridges in that corridor. So,
That's that, hooks it, the hooks it.
yeah, Rutland to Hoosick, yeah, Rutland to Hoosick. And then jumping up to Enosburg, we've got a slope failure on the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail that we need to fix. In Ferrisburg, we've got a rail bridge on 249 that needs some steel work. Actually, no, that one's not steel work, that's substructure, that's the bearings there need to be fixed. Hartford, so down in White River, we own that White River Junction Station, and currently the platform needs to be rehabbed because it doesn't meet ADA. So we've got ADA compliance, we actually have this one, and I'll get to it in a minute, but Bellows Falls, we also have.
So,
The
the
platform
station, I remember we bought that a few
We own
years
it.
ago. Is that like the rest areas where BGS is involved in the maintenance of the building?
No, we do that, and my property management section does
Takes
that,
care of that.
does that work, yeah.
And we have other tenants there?
We do, yeah, the town was in there, we had a kind of a welcome center in there for a while. New England Central, we rent an office to them. There was some folks in the second floor of that building just using it as office space. So anyway, we have a active.
And there's Amtrak in there as well.
Yeah, so that's our Amtrak, we want, obviously, that's why we own it, because it's for our Amtrak station.
No, it's parking too, I think that came with it.
Yeah, we have some parking, which joins with the courthouse parking, so BGS helps us with that, because of the plowing and that stuff, so,
Is that free parking there?
yes.
Do we own any stations that just have freight?
So the stations we own are, so White River Junction we own, obviously on the 8th and Allen, we own the Burlington Station, we own the,
We have Montpelier.
we don't. No, we don't. We own the Virgin Station.
Essex
Yeah, we were.
owns Essex, right?
Essex, well, no, the railroad owns that building.
Okay, because they were gonna update it or remodel.
They did get a grant. They got a nice big grant to,
That's really obsolete for the amount of traffic.
yeah, and that's also the bus station. So
Yeah, right.
that's a multimodal facility.
They built 100 years ago there,
Yeah, and what's interestingly about that is, you guys have seen or heard about the dispatch for New England Central has all their dispatch facility up in St. Albans.
Yeah.
Well,
All
their
the
backup,
country.
their backup facility, if that went down,
Yeah,
their backup facility where all their second computers are and all that stuff is in the Essex station.
in that
So,
little station?
yeah, so that's where,
Where the hell
if it went, no, I know it's small, but it's, that's their backup facility.
Because in St. Albans, that's major for all over the country. They dispatch trains everywhere.
And if that one went down, they'd have to go to Essex
Wow.
and set up shop there.
So it's a redundant system.
Yeah,
It always amazed me out of St. Albans, they dispatch trains. I was up there one time. All over the United States, they got a train on track 22. And then, oh my God, that's a big central.
yeah, it is. We're very fortunate to have that in Vermont.
I guess so. I
Some
guess
very
so.
good jobs there,
Yeah, they're 24/7.
24/7. Yeah, no, it's a great facility. They do a great job there.
What is the biggest in terms of, you're talking about, what you're doing in St. Albans, what is the biggest railroad station in America. You know.
I don't know,
you
you're
know,
talking about just passenger or?
We took the train. We took the train into Rome. And I don't remember how many tracks are coming in there. It's huge,
Yeah.
huge, the number, and you have to go underneath the tracks. I was just wondering, would it be Grand Central?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a
How
good
fast did the
question.
train go you're on, Jay? Fast?
What?
How fast did the train go that you were riding?
It wasn't a fast train. It was from Orvieto into
Did some of
Rome.
these trains go up?
No, the ones that go really fast, taken in France, the TGV took it from Paris to Avignon. That's fast.
Yeah.
That's fast. But they had to build a separate track, separate stations and everything to support it.
In one conversation at some point, they were talking about we could speed up the Ethan Allen Express and some improvements with advanced signaling along the Ethan Allen route. Is that in these projects at all?
No, what we did to get the Ethan Allen to go to Burlington at 59 miles an hour. Okay, so let me get back. So there's different classes of track, right? So White River Junction south on the Vermonter, we can go 79 miles an hour. North, we can only go 59 because there's these signals you're talking about, where there's block signals, things like that. Very expensive. It's almost like PTC, right? So it's not, that's called CTC, so it's not fully PTC, but my point is, for us to put that on the Ethan Allen, it would be millions and millions of dollars, okay?
We're
In
talking about
Vermont,
millions of dollars.
well, so in Vermont, so the reason why, one of the reasons why, north of White River, we're more restricted by, and I'll use my hands, talk with my hands, but we're more restricted by geography. If we were a straight line, then maybe it makes sense to put these signals in. But in Vermont, where we have to kind of go around mountains and follow the rivers and things like that, it's not always, the investment's not always worth it because you may be able to legally go 79, but your geography wouldn't let you, right?
It'd be
Without
like putting a
straightening,
70-mile speed limit on Route 2.
without straightening things out, right?
Is it? That helps.
Yeah.
There are.
I'm sure he stretches.
He drives it every day, he like over there.
Oh,
No,
I
no.
have to for that.
You don't drive your.
Yes,
No, I'm just
I am, library, right? I talk with my hands.
In a week.
So I guess my point that what I'm making is, it's not always just the signals that determine
Right.
the increase in speed. And you know, what you're talking about, where you're going 200 miles an hour on a train, those are fully grade separated. So there's nobody crossing on a road. All the roads are under or over. There's nothing. All it is train, and there's trains only going in one direction. You're never going to meet a train coming the other direction on that track. There's two tracks. One's allowed to go this way, one's allowed to go that
Oh,
way.
really, like an interstate?
Yeah, so that's when you get into the speeds you're talking about, you're talking about a completely different
You're
railroad
not
than
gonna
what we
stop that
have.
train very fast.
No, you're not stopping a train going 200 miles an hour. You're not. Yeah,
Yeah, but I'd love to have that here in the US. I'd love to take a 200-mile-an-hour train across the country.
You got a fee for that?
You got a tax for that.
Oh, whoops. You know, no more free coffee at the rest area.
He's got a tax for it.
Tommy tax, they call it.
So now we're down to Hoosick. and
yes,
those-
sorry,
those-
moving on.
are those all
We're
built?
sorry.
Those are all built. right?
These are build projects, yes. The Hoosick ones are build projects. The Hoosick Barrington Rutland line item is another grant application that we want to put in. So it's the exact same tracks that we're doing the bridge projects on. Now what we want to do is put in an application to upgrade the very old stick rail, 90-pound stick rail, to a higher, safer, new rail. So rail comes in 39-foot sticks. And so, going to CWR, going to continuously welded rail.
You don't have that clunkety.
You don't get the clunkety clunk, right?
Some people like that.
Yeah.
Keep
So-
it
It's like the cement sections on Route 5. the
Yeah.
bump, bump, bump.
Um, So that's what that is. It's a build, it's another grant. So Manchester Bridge 67, that's a build project. The next one is a build project in Manchester Bridge 71.
So there's a match on bill. Is that the 80/20 again?
Yes. The other Manchester project is there's FEMA mitigation project there. We have a flooding problem, seems to be continually happening every few years. So we're trying to do some FEMA mitigation to get rid of the flooding problem there. So it's a FEMA project. Manchester, the next Manchester is a cattle, that's a build project. Montpelier Bridge 304. So this is a project that we have been doing in stages. This is sort of the next stage. It's the one over here by Shaw's. We keep doing different pieces of the bridge. This is the next piece. I'm not exactly sure which component this is, but I know it's the next one. Mount Tabor, this is a rehab project. That's also built.
That track, it comes right along. What happens to that track over against the river by Shaw's?
The river that it crosses.
No, it parallels the.
Yeah, it follows the river.
Yeah.
And then Shaw's,
Crosses
where
Main Street, goes right by Sarducci's.
it goes, that's where it goes, right up through there, and then up to the new section that you.
On Route 2, yeah.
What did we call it? The runaround?
Roundabout.
Not the round. No, what do we?
Oh, yeah, we did the runaround track.
So
Yeah, we did the runaround
to
track
get
to the
rid of
roundabout.
bridge.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but they're still going strong.
What's going strong?
Sarducci's been there for a long time.
All right, the next one in Mount Tabor is another build project about to be awarded. Newberry, this is a brand new project that we are just scoping. That bridge doesn't rate to 286,000 pounds, so we are starting to figure out what that bridge needs. Rockingham platform, I talked about this in White River. We own that platform and we have to make that ADA compliant. That project's gonna,
So
Go
we,
ahead,
do
Ken.
we own the station in Rockingham?
we don't own the station, but we own the platform. So we own the actual land that the platform's on. So
And that's on the Connecticut River line.
that is on the, technically it's on the Green Mountain line, but it intersects with the New England Central right there. So it's it's a Vermonter train
Oh.
that follows the New England
And
Central.
does the Vermonter stop in
Yeah,
Rockingham, Bells Falls?
Yes. So the next one is another grant application where, again, it's another corridor grant project where we're gonna try to upgrade from Bellows Falls to Rutland, any bridge that's not 286,000 pounds. Rutland Spruce Street, that's a new crossing for us. That's a new project added this year to redo that crossing, and this is the scoping effort. The next Rutland City is a bridge that's actually right in the middle of the rail yard. And that's a build project.
Where did 286,000 pounds ever come from? Is that something that they,
So that's what the cars are made to handle. That's what the rail cars can be, if you're fully loaded,
okay,
if you fully load a car, that's what it weighs.
with stone or whatever you go.
With the average,
Okay, so that's where they come up with that figure.
yes.
Okay, because that's the freight part of it, okay. Yeah.
It used to be, the industry standard used to be 263,000 pounds, smaller cars. Now we started making rail cars bigger.
Oh, okay.
And so now we had to upgrade the bridges to handle the new cars. This isn't new, this is.
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is-
We heard about
years
it for
ago.
years.
Yeah.
Just wondered how they come up with the 286,000 pounds, not 285,000.
Yeah,
The car's capacity.
it's the car capacity. And railroad industry often says, well, maybe it should be 315,000. I'm like, hey, we haven't even caught up to 286,000 yet.
How wide is a rail car? How
wide?
Yeah,
So let's see, I'm gonna say it's probably 4'7". It's probably around 7 feet wide, 6.5, 7 feet wide.
Well, freight.
Usually gonna move.
Just, I had wondered that, because you look at some of those tracks sometimes, they'll say, man, that must be a tight fit if they're, if you have a side track and you have a train going by.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's 7 feet wide.
Yeah.
Actually, it has to be a little wider than that,
I
because
think
if
so,
you
if you look
put,
at a passenger car,
I think 8 to 10 feet almost.
well, rail ties are 8'6", and so it's basically, I guess it's about this size, about the width of a rail tie. Yeah, so 8'6".
Doesn't
That's a
go
good
to-
question.
doesn't go to the
Nobody's ever
very-
asked me that question before.
It doesn't go to the very
You
end.
come in here, Dan. We'll get you off. We'll get you off on about everything. Yeah.
Good question.
Well, he's got a lot of passenger service up his area.
Oh, we do, yeah. Me too.
They jump on a box car.
Most of them are like this, you gotta get the whole thing. You have somebody good on the other side.
I'm very familiar with his area, but.
Yes, he is.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, where did I leave off? I left off with Spruce Street, and then I went on City, oh, that was in the yard, yeah, Shaftesbury. These are build projects through here, so Rutland City, Shaftesbury, those are all build projects. Shelburne, Burlington, that's quiet zone, so years ago when they ran the.
it's one big one in Shaftesbury, isn't it, that replaced the bridge? That's 3.8 million.
So that one's a big project, so
No,
that's
it's
actually.
not just a rehab, it's a replacement.
It's a replacement and it's a culvert, and the culvert's about 35 feet deep in the ground. And something that we never say never, but we don't usually do is we're actually, because this is so deep, we actually have to shut the railroad down for 21 days and move traffic around the Green Mountain and move it in through.
Yeah, but you've had the Middlebury experience of rerouting.
Yes, which is also something that was like a very unique situation that doesn't usually happen. So, yeah, no, we have.
Here's another question, Brett, how do you number the bridges? Like, why do we have bridges that are 7, like that bridge is bridge 7?
Those are, you can thank the railroad for that. These are bridge numbers that were already there when we owned it, but generally it had to do with a mile post or a mile marker. It's a half a mile in or, 0.6 mile in or whatever. So
We're from the border.
it generally relates to a mile marker, but
Many years ago, I was given a railroad crossing, all rusted. Beaten up, I was given one by the Vermont Railway. I had it all restored. It's in my garage now, and it lights up and everything. It's been beautiful. Look at brand new ones. I got a railroad crossing.
And yeah, I just want to prepare you for your next briefing. It's 10'6".
10'6", thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's wider than the tie.
On a
I
60
should know that.
On a
I
60
should have known
See
that.
that? Damn it.
I
You
should
know
have known
everything
that.
About that. You let him tell you the answer.
Oh, no, we looked it
No,
up.
that's
On a
You
60-foot
Google it.
standard, on a 60-foot standard car, it's 10'6".
10'6".
On a 50-foot standard car, it's 10'7".
Okay. Yeah, I clearly didn't know the answer.
That's the only thing you don't know about rail.
Nobody's ever asked me that question before.
Sorry.
And do the bridges, like the roads, change when they hit the state line? Like, do you start back at 0 and start numbering bridges again?
Depends on the railroad, but it could, yes.
Back to the advanced signaling or other things, there's the complaints I'm hearing about the Ethan Allen Express is that it's just not fast enough. Is there anything that, whatever price tag it is, that you do see we could do along that route to speed up?
Where, Burlington? The new
Down to New York, it's still like 8
Somebody said it
hours.
wasn't fast enough.
Yeah, but they evaluate it, they still want to just take their own car.
Look at that, someone from South Burlington.
Yeah.
So,
It tells you all the time you're gonna be there.
It's just the amount of time. Huh?
I will tell you that we launched the service. The schedule that we put on the service was a little bit conservative because we were going over track that we'd never gone over before. There's some sections in Addison County that have some very high level clay underneath there that the freight every year, that I'm exaggerating this, but the track sort of drops out, meaning there's a big sag in the track. So we've added some time in the schedule to accommodate that in the spring. However, we also just did some projects where we injected concrete into that clay, so give it some structure. If we're successful in keeping that stable track, we will reduce we've added about 30 minutes of extra time in that schedule. And I see us cutting about 30 minutes off. If everything goes right, we'll probably cut another 30 minutes off. That's probably the best we're gonna do.
And what is the time from Burlington to?
It's a little over 7.5 hours.
So we can do like 5.5.
And Dan, there's gonna be a lot of stops on that too, though. I mean,
Even with Chester.
There's stops. I mean, we added, obviously, from Burlington to Rutland, we added Burlington, Virginia,
Yeah.
Middlebury, so there's 3 extra stops, but all the others, yeah, there's a bunch of stops in down and through New York.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you drive that, how long would it take? 5.5 hours?
So you're saying you go down to 7?
Yeah, we're gonna be about 7.
I think so.
Is
Well,
there free coffee on the trip? Yeah.
the advantage is you're right there in Manhattan.
Yeah, you're right,
And you
you're
have
right in
no
New York.
car, you don't
Not
have
parking your
costs, you
car.
know, so.
Relaxation, you can do your homework on the train.
There's Wi-Fi, there's a
But if
cafe
you
car.
take the plane,
Yeah.
I mean, by the
You'll
time,
be at the airport 3 hours ahead of time.
yeah, so, and then by the time you take public transit back into the city, if you're going to, Manhattan or whatever, it can be expensive to take a cab if JFK, if you want to take the little train and connect to the subway, but it's still kind of a lot of jing and hong to get there. So the advantage of a train is you're right downtown.
And
The relaxation is great.
you don't have to go through TSA and all that stuff. like the
No,
plane,
no,
right?
you don't have to take off your clothes, take off your shoes, open up everything. I mean, get
Strip search.
bodies,
Right.
pat down sometimes. So there are advantages.
Like I said, get there 2 hours in advance.
Yeah, you do, you
Yeah,
really do.
so, yeah, if you don't get there 2 hours, it's
And free parking, you don't have the parking garage to worry about.
Well, no, and in the city, parking is.
Yeah.
okay.
All right, moving on. The next line is quiet zone. I think we're all familiar with what that is. When the Green Mountain Flyer ran from Burlington down through Charlotte, there's a bunch of crossings there.
Thank God we did that years ago. Oh my God.
That's to maintain the quiet zones. In Sheldon, there's a Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail Bridge that the abutment is falling into the river, so we gotta fix that abutment. St. Johnsbury, there's Bridge 540. That bridge only rates to 183 right now, so
That's really low, isn't it?
yeah, so it's kind of a weak link currently, so we're getting, building that, we're fixing that one. Then there's a bunch of statewide line items in the budget, and basically what this is, like, I'll give you an example, immediate attention bridge. So there's things that when we go out and do our annual inspection, we might find something that happened just that year that we didn't know was, it didn't happen since our last inspection, that we have to respond to immediately to keep that bridge going. So that's what this money is. We find every year. Every year we find something. There's, the bearing froze up, or something that, something that we got to deal with immediately. So that's what that is. Property management. This is where we deal with all the buildings that we're talking about, stations, and different things. Crossing surface program. This is when you guys get a call and it says Route 2 has a pothole at the crossing. Come fix it. This is the money I used to go and deal with that.
We can call you about that.
You can.
So are you
I get calls all the time.
anticipating a three-way partnership?
That's in here. That's on the next
I
page.
know, but, because that usually, we hadn't had too many of those.
We haven't in the
I
last
wondered if you
year or
were
two.
anticipating one.
Interestingly enough, I've had 2 different phone calls in the last few months about whether this program was still available, and they've got a couple of customers. The railroad generally calls me and says, I had somebody call me about a 3-way program, and then we talk about if it's a viable project or not. So there's actually 2 sort of in the hopper right now. So we'll see. Maybe neither one of them will come about, but yes, it's still something that.
You've got the money to help with.
Yeah, we put it in as a placeholder. If it can generate a little extra railroad business, that's what it's all about.
Dan, did the Amtrak contract go up because of the extension of Burlington? And if so, how much?
So We don't know the exact number. So how we do our Amtrak contract is we pay what's called actual. So every month they figure out what that train actually costs per month, and we get billed that amount.
Minus their revenue.
So if you get a number of if we have a projected ridership. If we get a higher than projected ridership, we get the benefit of that, right? So the cost goes down. So we put about $1 million in our budget extra over the last couple of years. We actually put it in some last year because we thought the train was going to run part of the year last year, but it didn't start till July. So overall, we're about $1 million higher, projected $1 million higher. We don't think we're going to need an extra $1 million, but
Because ridership is.
ridership's great.
Yeah.
If we continue the ridership the way we're going, there's a chance that it actually breaks even the additional costs. That's how much, if we continued on the current level.
What's the cost? You know what the cost is of New York City?
Ticket.
A ticket cost?
Yeah.
$75.
Yeah, I'm gonna say $80, in the 80s.
It's not always the same.
It isn't, if you buy it early, but if you buy it the day up, it's probably 100 something,
Yeah, around the holidays.
They got a business class in the back, which is really nice, but,
Are you serious?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so it's a special.
He's a
class.
Business class sells out faster than general boarding pass.
It's not much more expensive and it's worth the money.
He's Victory Club members.
Never mind.
So,
Yeah, free coffee.
well, he's on a council.
Oh, yeah.
It's like at hotels where they have a special floor where you have amenities.
So if we're looking to expand ridership, and since ridership's going so really well, I wonder, has it ever been considered in your depth of experience with this, looking at the East Express for a what do you call it, a bloodshot, a red eye, where it would leave at midnight and then you would go overnight and arrive in New York City at 7 a.m. Because I know there's the circles like float in, and
You
you can
do
come
that
up
from
here.
DC, I think that's at night.
There would be interest in that, but I'm just curious if that's been in the discussion at all.
So what's in the discussion is, if you look at our statewide rail plan, what's in there is looking at different frequencies of trains. So it's certainly not on our number one priority is getting the Vermonter. Our next priority is getting the Vermonter to Montreal. But behind that is looking at, so there's been studies about adding another frequency from Burlington, going down through Rutland, continuing south on this section where we're doing the build projects, going down through Manchester and Hoosick and going that as an additional frequency. So we would run the current Amtrak and then looking at running a second train out of Burlington. So again, long range. This is nothing that's in our books right now. This is not. We just have Burlington in July. So let's figure out where we are today and figure that out. But to answer your question, there has been discussion about looking at another frequency, and I don't know if it's exactly a red eye or not, but the timing is not worked out. The additional frequency is what we're looked at.
And that's the same for the Vermonters. You're gonna have this meeting tomorrow with Senator Harrison, who talks about the prior plan, or maybe even the current plan, they talk about a second.
They do.
Vermont.
They talk about, so there's another frequency that there was this Boston study that talked about an additional frequency on the Vermonter service. And, the numbers sort of on the paper look like they make sense.
How would it get to Boston?
Well, so that's the other
change
part.
in Springfield.
Yeah, Springfield. That's the only way right now.
Springfield, Mass.
Springfield, Mass. You have to get off in Springfield and take a east-west corridor train.
Going through New Hampshire, practically impossible.
There's nothing there.
So the problem with New Hampshire is there's a railroad going this way, there's a railroad going this way, and they've disconnected the middle.
We don't want EV stations, let alone more train.
So,
Okay, so how we
all right, I'll try to move on because I gotta get to aviation too. So yeah, these are the statewide stuff. So there's the surfacing, there's the Amtrak marketing. We're gonna look at applying for an Amtrak station grant to upgrade our stations. Here's the Amtrak contract money that we were talking about. Next page is our rail admin. That's all my people.
Your salary?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just your.
Just-
Much was it?
3 million.
Thank you, Senator Ingalls.
Oh, you only get 10%.
Yeah, yeah, well, I negotiated it tonight. I want to get something for it. Dan will help out.
Here's a three-way program we talked about.
What's a three-way program? I apologize. I know you're trying to get through it. I
Well,
apologize.
there's one in, Barton, I
Yeah,
think.
so the Barton transload, the
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So what we did there was, when they expanded the sidetrack in there, V-Trans paid for a third of it, Kuchar paid for a third of it, the railroad paid for a third of it.
What about the second line? Same, because you have the second line, that's that sidetrack there.
The
yeah.
siding, yeah,
Yeah.
so they,
Because you went almost from Ethan Allen right straight down to that siding.
yeah, so some of that the railroad paid for. We weren't part of that. But the piece right in the yard, in the Kuchar yard, was part of the freeway program.
And that whole length of track is just why would they want it so long and to pay for it? I mean, even the business of it, I mean, why would they want that second track so long? Because really, all it is to store cars.
That's exactly what they use.
Yeah.
Yeah. to
So
store
at
cars.
some point in time, a lot like what they might do down in, going down through on Route 5, where they have all those fuel cars or whatever, it's just to put some available cars to store them, to site them for
Yeah, if,
future use.
yeah, so if you ask the railroad, they don't have enough capacity now to store everything they've got. So, and it also is seasonal. So certain times of year, you'll have a lot of cars hanging around, and
Okay.
other time of year, we won't need it all, but it's, you know,
Well,
Yeah, so
yeah, right, right.
so it's capacity.
Yep, thank you.
Cross tie program is, so again, we invest in upgrading cross ties on these rail lines. For safety, Operation Lifesaver, that's our statewide railroad safety
Stay
program.
off the tracks.
Stay off the tracks, right. We go into schools and we do railroad safety classes and things like that. Storm bridge mitigation is something that was required with the build grant. FEMA Cat Z is a placeholder for us to pay our employees and then get reimbursed by FEMA for our time. The other railroad right away, this is when we deal with encroachments and leases and licenses to cross our tracks. Our rail trail program, we talked about that on the overview, where we've taken the rail trail program back into V-Trans, and we're managing all 4 of our rail trails now. Section 130 is a federal reporting requirement on federal highway for all our rail crossings. Bridge inspection, as you know, we have a snooper truck and a high rail truck that we have to maintain, and we have to maintain an insurance certificate to be on the rails. That's what that money is. We have a FEMA project in Sunderland for culvert replacement. And then the last 2 projects are build bridges. So that's the rail budget.
Okay,
You got a lot going on, Dan.
we go to
Now let's go to the air.
aviation. So if I had my way, this page would not be here. They'd all be privately owned or community owned. And we would be out of the airport business and we go like the railroad, we let them out wherever.
You got a railroad.
But the only problem is here,
Cul-de-sac there.
we sell them all, we gotta pay federal government back every nickel we ever got. Is that correct?
We have federal investments that we have grant assurances that we have to maintain. So if we sell them, we have to deal with the grant assurances for sure.
So I think the community could run these airports, let them do what they
We'll
want.
get one up in Colchester if you better.
Sure.
You'll feel good
We
about
used to have
it.
an airport down the street from the local airport there.
You can have the South Burlington one.
Pardon me.
We don't own that one.
Is this the tab that was changed? Is that why it was photocopied? We had one, they said that one tab was changed.
I think the 10G reports were changed, which are the back one of the. back.
Okay, we're on aviation. All right.
Tab 10.
Tab 10.
Go right ahead.
So we've got typical at every airport, we have trees that grow up at the end of the runway that we need to cut. So we need to go onto other people's property. So we have to get easements. So we have to go buy easements. That's what this is in Bennington. We've got a couple trees on property on the east end, and then we got to go cut
I think that if I owned the next to you, I'd be putting fertilizer on some of those trees.
them. In Bennington, the ramp there, the apron is pretty bad shape. So we have a FAA grant that's going to rehab the apron. We're also in Bennington looking at the next phase of the parallel taxiway, and that's on the west end. We already did the east end. Moving to Knapp, same thing, obstruction removal and navigation easements there.
Is that a fairly busy airport with,
Knapp is, so Knapp gets, we have UPS that comes in there every day. So that's just a constant. We have not a lot, but we have a fair amount of commercial, like charter service that comes in there, and private, like, for instance, the Keurig folks, Coca-Cola Keurig, that they come in there, their executives come in there quite often, at least once a week.
How big is the UPS plane? Is it a jet?
Yeah, it's a small jet. It sits right, if you go up there, it sits right in front of the terminal building every day. It's the one that says Wiggins on the side.
and then they've got their terminal right back there.
Yeah, so what they do is
Where their
they,
trucks are, I'm talking about. the trucks.
yeah, so they bring their truck right out on the ramp, they back it up to the plane, and so they do that. They come in the morning and leave in the afternoon. All right, moving to Rutland, which is the Clarendon Airport. So this SRE building is a snow removal equipment building. This was in the budget last year. We bid it, we got all the drawings done. We put the thing out to bid, we got the bid came in double. We didn't have enough money to build it. So we stopped, we said, all right, stop. We did a little redesign. Hopefully we can tweak it a bit, and we're gonna put it back out to bid. So it was in last year's budget, so if you look back, it's in last year's budget. We didn't do it.
It's like everything doubled the price. It's crazy.
Doubled.
Everything.
It doubled. Yeah.
Gone crazy.
So we're trying it again. We have to redo the main runway in Rutland because it's time. So that's what the next runway 119 is, a rehab project.
There's not even any match on that, huh? Just a straight federal highway fund, federal aviation funds?
We were able to get yes, we are able to get a 100% FAA funded project there.
What is the other column? You've got the truck, and it says other. What's the funding source for the truck?
So I asked this question. I don't know why that's in other. There's a bunch of.
Well, it is, I know it is
Pickup truck.
federal, yeah.
So to me, if you look at the right side of the page, it shows the state match and the federal
Yeah, it
match. And it
does.
does add up. The whole thing adds up to other. I don't know why it's in other, but
Just wondering what.
I agree. I don't know the answer to that question, but I did ask that too. Their terminal building there needs some rework. The siding's starting to rot. So we have a terminal rehab project. We have a patchwork terminal apron project there right out in front of the terminal building where the park planes. The FAA is making us do a study to make sure that our truck, which is the firefighting truck, has adequate space to park the truck because they're buying us a new truck, so they want to make sure that the building is right. Also in Clarendon, we have TS. Yeah, do it
Well, make
first.
sure you
The new-
the other way around. Why would you
Well,
buy the truck and not find that it
we
was
already-
at?
We already have a truck and we already have a building, so I think this is a check the box for them.
Oh, all right.
But it's a study, you have to pay the study to check the box.
Yeah, it's their requirement. If they're gonna pay for a new truck, they want to check the box. So.
I would think they want to check the box before they gave you the truck, but
How's the federal government be able to pay all this money to these airports that don't have any benefit from the federal? How are they able to pay this kind of money? Where do they collect the money for all this?
Well, in Clarendon, Rutland, we have commercial service there.
Well, no,
right? So-
Rutland, I should separate Rutland. Rutland,
Yeah.
I'd leave Rutland the way it is, I'd leave that, but all the other airports there's no advantage to, I mean,
Well, believe it or not, if you went to, if you went to the Coventry Airport and you sat at Coventry Airport every day, you're gonna see a lot of charter service coming in, small jets coming in that go to JP or.
but do
go-
we make money on that? Do we?
So what we do is, we have an FBO that runs that airport. We charge him a lease fee. He sells fuel. We get a fee on the fuel. So we get some money back when someone comes in, lands at our airport, buys fuel from us, some for our FBOs at our state airports, and we also get lease revenue for that business. That FBO rents that space from the state of Vermont. Now,
And we also
none of
got a
these
federal-
airports pay
you said
for themselves.
150,000.
Yes,
Federal grant per airport as well.
Yes, so if it's part of the state or the countrywide airport system, the NIPIAS, the national system, which 9 out of the 10 airports that we have are part of the NIPIAS, we do get an annual amount at that airport. It differs depending on, like Rutland gets the most. And then, like Stowe gets less, and Franklin gets less than Rutland, but more than Stowe. So, it differs per airport. But yeah, but Senator, none of the airports make money. None of the railroads make money. None of the transit facilities make money. So
The highway system does.
highway doesn't make money. So there is a certain amount of subsidy to any transportation network. So,
But we don't, the public doesn't benefit other than the people that fly in. So we don't have a service at these other airports rather than we have a service. So I can't take a plane out of Berlin or.
you could charter a plane.
Oh, charter.
You could charter a
I'm
plane
just
for
saying
any one of these
service.
airports. And that's becoming very popular because a lot of people don't want to fly commercial anymore. So there's a lot of charter service that are coming into some of these GA airports. Newport, for one. Newport gets a ton of charter service.
Yeah.
Stowe gets a ton of charter service.
Well, with what Beta is doing, we're gonna need these. There's gonna be an increasing amount of short hops via the air, because those are short range electric airplanes that go up to 250 miles. So
I would, we go fly from Berlin to Rutland or something.
Russ is gonna buy one of these things. He's gonna be hopping around the state.
I'm happy that we're forward thinking on a lot of this stuff, and I hear Senator Mouse's concern and point, but when you look at, as Senator Kitchell has pointed out several different times about once you get to New Hampshire, Littleton, I mean, there's nothing north of that. And as you had said, Dan, they have a rail line here, and nothing in between. I mean, it's just, we're the only corridor to come up through there, whether it be rail or air, I don't know.
What private enterprise could do is they could run them also. Community could run them.
Well, they could, Senator, but I think what it gets down to is whether they can, whether we would have even the service because it has to make a return on it. It's like the project at Jay Peak, and I hate to get offline on it, but the project they did at Jay Peak, the best thing that ever happened is when the embezzlement happened and the feds and the state stepped in and stopped it. But the benefit of it is that we have a massive, great structure up there that actually pays for itself now, but never would have came in because nobody had the foresight, or probably rightly so, to put the infrastructure dollars in there to make it work. And so by mistake, we have something up there now that gives 500 jobs and brings a lot of revenue into the state where private enterprise never would have stepped in there.
So some of it's economic impact that it's experienced and benefits that are experienced in other, other ways.
I think the aviation industry is right on the verge of making a lot of changes. And I think
You had said that Amazon, for example, their whole delivery model would
if you
actually.
look at what Beta's doing and forward thinking there, and again, these short hops, Senator Chittenden was talking about, I think we are about to turn the page on the aviation industry. So I think having these airports.
Taking trucks off the highways, maybe as far as to, not come over on Route 15 quite so much, just throwing an electric airplane in there.
I think it's going to change. I think if sitting here 10 years from now, looking forward, I think it's a different conversation about these airports.
A lot of what your point is, Senator Mazza, and I've heard you say it many, many times about, everybody will give, we got to get these things off the road. But once you get to a junction of where it is, you have to just distribute from that junction to the source. And
But also, we get constant complaints from the area that they're in. Oh, they want this, they want that, they don't want the noise, they don't want the land.
So the only place we're hearing it now is Middlebury, I think.
Yeah. I get a few noise complaints in South Burlington, but that's a council rule. But these Beta planes are electric and they're quiet.
Are you calling it a
I have to. I was appointed to a board that meets at 12 up there, so I'm good at the park.
We want to.
Sorry. This is a tax, this committee is just secondary to
Is it
this.
tax board or
Ah,
the tax committee or? Oh, okay.
As much as I love aviation.
Going on agriculture.
All right, I'll just quickly run through the rest of this. Coventry, we've got a Northern Borders grant, so we're gonna do a new terminal building in Coventry.
When's that starting, Dan?
Well, my goal is next construction season, we'll have a shovel on the ground. So not in the beginning, it'll be more towards, it'll be late summer, early fall.
So you're building that for $500,000? That's the total cost of construction?
Well,
I've been.
no, it'll probably span 2 fiscal years. So this is most of it, but it'll probably probably won't be finished until the next July,
So
summer.
you'll see more money.
So there'll be more
next
money
year.
in, FY25. And there's some money in 23 for design, so. Then we've got a vegetation management plan up there. So there's easement maintenance. Moving over to Highgate. So this is our big push right here. So we're expanding the runway there. We're widening it to 75 feet and we're expanding it to a little over to 4,001 feet. It's currently 3,000 feet long. So phase 1 is we're reconstructing the existing runway. Phase 2 is we're extending it the extra 1,000.
And you have sufficient land to do all this. We own it.
We own the land where the actual runway is, but there's the approach surfaces where we fly over, where we have to go out and cut some trees because they're sticking up now. So if this is the current runway, planes take off and they go right here. Now we're expanding that another 1,000 feet. So now planes are lower out here. So we've got to get more easement to cut some trees. And
Well, like again, no match. I mean, it's just all federal dollars.
Some must be making money. That airport must be, breaking. That's-
No, that one doesn't break even either, but that's one of our busier GA airports.
Because they got everything. They got mechanics, they repair. planes,
Yeah,
they do
no, it's
everything.
busy. It's a pretty busy airport.
And
George
it's got the
Boyd's still
potential for growth.
For sure, we have a significant amount of land, so there's the runway here. We own a bunch of land to the side of that is just prime for industrial growth, aviation use. But yeah, no, there's a lot of potential at Franklin.
And you guys are still on that program as far as looking to get permits, ready,
Master
sites?
permitting effort, yeah, we do have a master permitting effort that some airports are done, about half of them are done, we still have much left, but getting through the permit process has taken us at least 2 years so far.
Well, there goes the thought process of why you guys are doing that. So hopefully somebody won't have to do that when they're ready to put some dollars in the ground, so.
Exactly.
Middlebury, you're doing
Obstruction removal in Middlebury, we've got some trees to cut from so obstruction removal is continuous for us. Trees grow up every year, we gotta cut them back down. So obstruction removal is something that we're.
What's the fuel farm?
So the fuel farm, this past year, it's an old fuel farm and we have to test the fuel every day. And the fuel did not pass, it had particles in the fuel. And the reason it had particles in the fuel was because the inside of the tank was old and it was starting to corrode. So we couldn't sell fuel there. So now we need a new fuel system because the inside of the tank,
So you're not selling anything.
well, we are now selling fuel using a temporary solution out of a truck, one of those aviation fuel trucks. So there is fuel available there, but it's on a temporary basis, not the most efficient use. And our fuel farms generally are self-contained, or Russ or Senator Ingalls could pull up and fuel his own plane. This fuel truck is not. You need someone to fuel your.
I'm worried if he gets his license, I'm worried where he's.
Me too.
I
I hope I land where I'm supposed to.
don't want to be around that area.
You were just about the BTP match.
Yeah, so FAA basically says that if you generate income, if an airport generates income, that income, you have to take that investment and reinvest it back into the airport. So for state of Vermont, we collect fuel tax there, so we have to reinvest that back into Vermont.
And it's around 500.
Yeah, and It's about what it's been running. Yeah. And then down in Springfield.
Do we just give it to the airport authority, or what do we do with it?
No,
We say
what
you
they
have to
do,
use it for certain things.
so it has to be AIP eligible, which is what FAA says. So the airport improvement, has to meet the airport improvement program.
They can't
And so
put it
they-
in their general budget.
Right, so they submit to us, they submit it to V-Trans, expenses against their AIP program, we reimburse them against the AIP program. And then Springfield, we have that runway rehabilitation project, there's 5,500 feet of runway there, that's not in great shape, so we have a project there. And then we have our airport operations, which is all our maintenance workers and equipment, and we have snow blowers, plows, sweepers at these airports to maintain the runways.
So what do they do? Cost allocate you between air and rail?
For our, I have certain employees charge all their time to aviation, certain employees charge all their
But
salary.
you have to split your time, your salary,
My salary goes on the rail,
all goes to.
just because that's where I was first.
Well, so that's 3.2, I mean, it's just, you know.
Just because that's where I was
Two
first.
jets. Yeah. More than 100,000.
And then we have some pavement maintenance at the end, just for some of these runways. Oh, CIP, that's Civil Air Patrol. We fund the Civil Air Patrol in the state of Vermont to help them with, they help us recover, if there was a plane that went down or things like that, they had to go out and do a recovery effort. We have.
Are they volunteers?
They have some volunteers and I think they have some paid positions.
So, Dan, you have a lot going on. Is it unusual or usual that a state would have one director in charge of both rail and air?
New Hampshire has the same thing.
Yeah.
I haven't looked around at other ones, but, what's usual, right? What is, I think
Yeah.
everybody, it seems to be working,
Dan knows them well, he knows them both.
it seems to be working well.
Yeah,
What's
We don't
been,
know if he's not doing the same job in New Hampshire.
yeah, it could be. Could be that guy there.
Dan, are we still online or are we adjourned today?
Still on.
No, we're still alive.